Welcome back. I ended the last video on Frederick Taylor saying that I was going to talk about my favorite couple in the history of management, Frank and Lillian Gibreth, and so they're what's up now. Lillian and Frank Gilbreth were both born and raised in America. They grew up on the opposite sides of the country. I'm not exactly sure how they met each other, but anyhow, they grew up in America and they are hands down my favorite couple when it comes to studying management. I'll start by talking about Frank Gilbreth. Frank Gilbreth was born in 1868, which is exactly 100 years before when I was born. And so part of the reason that I feel a connection to Frank is that Frank was born exactly 100 years before me, and Frank was not pretty weird, he was really weird. I know I'm weird. Frank's dad died when Frank was just 3.5 years old. His dad was rich, but then the family that took care of him and took care of his money squandered it all, basically lost almost all of it. He was not a good student when he was growing up. His mom actually pulled him out of school to teach him at home. He was brilliant, but he was just not a good student. And when he finally reached the point of graduating from high school, he was accepted into MIT, which is one of the best universities in the world. But he turned it down because he didn't want his mother to have to pay for it. And so he's like, I'll go work in a factory instead. So Frank started work as a bricklayer's assistant at the age of 17. He worked his way up to being the chief superintendent of the factory that he was working in by the age of 27. He wanted to become a partner of this company, and the owner was not willing. So Frank then just chose to resign and start his own business. And with the help of his wife, he developed a term called the Therbligs, which I'll explain later. Now let's talk about Lillian Evelyn Moller Gilbreth. She was born in 1878, so she's 10 years younger than Frank. She was born and raised in Oakland, California, which is what is Silicon Valley today, and she was raised by a wealthy family. When she graduated high school in 1896, she wanted to go off to college, but her father didn't want her to. So her father opposed her going to college, but she said, "Dad, I'm going anyway." She majored in English and she won a poetry contest. In 1900, she became the first woman to speak at a University of California commencement, so she spoke at the graduation ceremony. She received a PhD in engineering, and she's the only woman to ever win the Hoover Medal for engineers. The medal's been around for almost 100 years, and only one woman has ever won it, and that was Lillian Gilbreth. She and Frank had 12 children, and 2 of them later wrote a book called Cheaper by the Dozen, kind of making a joke of the fact they had 12 kids. The children described her as a wonderful, nurturing mother, and she worked all the way up until the age of 90. Her husband Frank died when Lillian was just 46, and she had 11 children under the age of 19 that she had left to raise. She worked, as I said, she worked until the age of 90, and so that means she lived for 47 years after her husband died. What made the Gilbreths famous was that they came up with what are called movement or motion studies. And so their most famous example was based off of Frank's experience as a bricklayer. And in their famous example here, they counted the number of motions that it took a bricklayer to lay a brick. So what I'm talking about here is the idea of laying bricks to build a wall. What they discovered was that it took 18 motions, bending down, picking up the brick, bending back up, moving over, putting it down, then getting the mortar, which is the white stuff, and putting the white stuff on top of the brick. And so in their famous example on this, it took 18 motions, on average, to lay every brick. They figured out ways to change where the bricks were, to put some scaffolding out, to change how they do it. So then it didn't take 18 motions, it was reduced to just 5 motions. When you're able to reduce the number of motions from 18 to 5, it's not a surprise that the workers became way more productive. And if you believe in paying by piece rate, which everybody in scientific management believes in paying by piece rate, then if you're able to reduce the the number of motions and you become more efficient, then your output's going to go up and you're going to pay your workers more. Higher output meant higher pay. Yay! The Gilbreths labeled their motions Therbligs, which is pretty much Gilbreth spelled backwards with the TH spun around. So how does this work? If you're able to reduce the number of Therbligs, that will lead to an increase in efficiency. That increase in efficiency means output goes up, which output goes up means the worker gets more pay. Yay! Now, as I said before, the Gilbreths are my favorite people in the history of management. And the reason why they're my favorite is that Frank believed everything can be done more efficiently. And here are some examples. When you take a shower in the morning, do you take more than 90 seconds to take that shower or take your bath? Because Frank Gilbreth says how you can wash everything in your body in less than 90 seconds. And if you take more than 90 seconds, you're wasting water, your time, energy, you're just not being efficient. When you put on a button shirt, do you start with the top button and button down? Or do you start with the bottom button and go up? Because Frank Gilbreth says that you're going to do it faster, you're going to be more efficient if you start with the top button and go down. When you put on socks and shoes, do you put on your socks first and then your shoes like a normal person? Or do you put one sock and one shoe on and then the other sock and the other shoe? Because doing one sock and one shoe at a time is actually faster. He even he wrote a way that you can brush your teeth more efficiently. And I don't even remember the story on that one. But apparently he didn't like people wasting too much time brushing their teeth. The best story on the Gilbreths. As I already mentioned, they had 12 kids. And at one time, 4 of the children needed to have their tonsils removed. That's the thing at the back of your throat. I don't know what the word tonsil is in Arabic. So 4 of them needed to have their tonsils removed. Frank went to the physician, went to the doctor, and he explained to the doctor that if the doctor wore roller skates, in other words, wheels on his feet, if the doctor put wheels on his feet, then the doctor could go to the first child, give that first child the anesthesia, so the first child would be out, get to the second child, out, back to the third child, anesthesia, out, and to the fourth child, anesthesia, and the child will be out. And because the doctor has wheels on his feet, he'll be able to get back to the first child, take the scalpel, take the knife into the throat, and take out the tonsils, get to the second child, take out the tonsils, third child, fourth child. And so the doctor, in theory, could operate on 4 children in about the time it takes to do 1 child. I don't know about you, but I don't want anybody coming near me with a knife, with a very, very sharp knife, wearing wheels on their feet. Frank is suggesting that the doctor wear roller skates, wheels on his feet, while doing surgery on Frank's children. That is crazy. By all accounts, Frank and Lillian genuinely loved each other, and so it's sad that at the age of 55, Frank died and left Lillian to raise the 11 remaining children on her own, and she was 46 years old raising these kids. Lillian worked hard to put all of her children through college. She made it one of her missions in life to basically set the record straight, to make it clear that companies that were misusing Frank's and hers ideas, that they're not doing it right. Remember, Taylor had a view of employees that they were lazy and dumb. Frank and Lillian did not. And so it upset her that many companies took their teachings that Frank and Lillian came up with, that took their work and turned it into ways to basically pay workers less, lower the piece rate, and then pay workers less. that seemed very unfair to her, and she spent the rest of her life trying to make it clear, if you're paying workers by piece rate and you pay them less, you're not doing it in the name of the Gilbreths. So just to make it clear, Lillian Gilbreth had no problem being critical of Frederick Taylor. She thought Frederick Taylor was wrong to assume that workers were lazy and would try to do the least possible work. And I agree with her, so I like her. Frank and Lillian Gibreth, two absolutely amazing people. I hope you found this 1/10 as interesting as I find it. And I thank you for watching.